You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Use of a nuclear weapon on a major populated area would immediately kill tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Men, women, children. Hundreds of thousands more would be alive, but severely injured, blinded, burned, crushed. The immediate effects of even a single nuclear weapon are overwhelming. Its destructive force capable of nightmarish scenes of death and despair, of suffering. They go far beyond what is considered acceptable, even in the context of war. The blinding flash will leave people sightless. The massive blast will level cities. The searing heat and spreading fires will melt steel and engulf homes, and can coalesce into a firestorm that will suck the air from anyone still breathing. The survivors of these physical traumas may yet be poisoned by radioactivity, which invades and destroys their bodies over the days and weeks that follow. In addition to this, there are significant long-term impacts of a nuclear weapons explosion. A single nuclear weapon will cause devastating damage to infrastructure, critical industry, to our livelihoods, and to our lives. The lives of mothers, of fathers, of grandparents, of children. The long-term effects of exposure to radiation will lead to increased incidence of leukemia and solid cancers among survivors, and a heightened risk of hereditary effects for future generations. Their use would result in large-scale forced and voluntary migration, floods of refugees into neighboring countries who would be unable to return home for decades, if ever. A nuclear weapons explosion will affect the environment and agricultural production for decades to come. If multiple nuclear weapons were used, the combined effects of their firestorms would seriously disrupt the global climate, causing widespread agricultural collapse and famine that could blight the lives of millions. Global communications and electrical and electronic systems would be disruptive. An extensive nuclear exchange would produce temperatures lower than the last ice age. The effects will spread beyond borders, to areas far away from where the bombs were dropped. There will be a disproportionate impact on the most vulnerable people around the world, those without enough food, those without access to healthcare, water, and education, those who are already suffering from the lack of resources. The conference on the humanitarian impact of nuclear weapons in Oslo, held in March this year, concluded that it would not be possible to coordinate and deliver any meaningful humanitarian response to a catastrophe brought about by nuclear weapons. No international organization, no state could adequately deal with the situation. Any use of nuclear weapons would eradicate hospitals and medical supplies and devastate all infrastructure required for the treatment of survivors. Physicians and paramedics arriving from outside would have to work without resources needed for effective treatment. Furthermore, radiation as we know it from both Chernobyl and Fukushima can make it impossible for rescuers to enter highly contaminated areas. There are still many aspects of the impact of nuclear weapons that are rarely discussed. We look forward to the upcoming conference in Mexico next year, where we hope all governments will continue to engage in a fact-based discussion around the humanitarian impact of nuclear weapons, the impact on the lives of people, of civilians who should be protected from the horrors of war. That nuclear weapons have not already been clearly declared illegal for all, alongside the other prohibited weapons of mass destruction, is a failure of our collective social responsibility. The time has come for committed states to correct that failure. The time has come to ban nuclear weapons once and for all. The current framework provided for multilateral nuclear disarmament negotiations has not been enough to overcome the lack of political will of nuclear-armed states to comply with their obligations to disarm. Let us not allow deadlocks in meetings to be the legacy that we leave behind us. A treaty banning nuclear weapons is achievable. It can be initiated by states that do not possess nuclear weapons. Nuclear-armed states should not be allowed to prevent such negotiations. We should not abandon productive or promising efforts in other forums, but neither should we ignore the opportunity that lies before us now to make history. History shows that legal prohibitions of weapon systems, of their use or their possession, facilitate their elimination. They become illegitimate. They lose their political status, and so do not continue compelling money and resources to be invested in their production, modernization, proliferation, and perpetuation. The ban on nuclear weapons will raise the political and economic costs of maintaining them by prohibiting assistance with the development, production, or testing of nuclear weapon systems. The new treaty will perhaps be the most important tool in our collective work towards eliminating nuclear weapons. And this tool can actually be achieved now. It will take courage. It will take the leadership by states free of nuclear weapons. And you will have the support of civil society. My name is Nosizwe Lise Baqwa, and I'm a campaigner from ICAN, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. Campaigners like me, from all around the world, are demanding action to finally achieve the outlawing and elimination of nuclear weapons. It's time. It's time to change the status quo. We don't need them. It's time to ban nuclear weapons. Thank you.